Hello everyone, and welcome to this demonstration video on how to encode the non-standard local code changes in Unifield. By now you should have received an email from HQ with the written instructions, the working instructions for this process, along with a communication on the process and procedure to follow on how to request the codes, how to check your database to make sure you don't have duplicate codes, and kind of all the steps that need to happen before you actually make the encoding in Unifield. So really what we want to focus on in this video today is how to do the actual encoding once you've done all the other processes and procedures that are detailed in those written instructions. So if you're not sure about the process, please refer back to the original communication from HQ and to get more details from those documents. So, how do you encode a non-standard local code change in Unifield? Well, really there's two possible scenarios that you can encounter, and in this video we're going to go through both scenarios individually so that you can see exactly what you need to do in each scenario. So what are the two scenarios? Well, the first and the easiest scenario is you have an item that is new, which means it has never existed in your Unifield instance before. So in this case, all you have to do is activate the new non-standard local Unidata code after you've received confirmation from HQ that the code has been created and subscribed, which means it'll automatically synchronize down to your instance. So, and then the second scenario, which we will do next, is the item already exists in your instance as a local Z medical code. In this case, it's a bit more involved. There's some more processes you need to do before you do the encoding in Unifield to make sure that we don't duplicate or we don't make any other mistakes identifying the proper code. But again, once you have validation from HQ that the code has been created and subscribed to OCB, then it will automatically synchronize and you'll be able to activate it in your instance. And this second scenario is going to be a bit more, one more step, meaning that you, instead of simply activating the code, you're going to actually merge it with the existing Z medical code that already exists in your Unifield instance. And when we merge the codes, it's actually going to take all the data and all the history from your local Z code, and it will activate the new Unidata non-standard local medical code, deactivate your local Z code, and then transfer all the history of your code onto the new code. So there's no history that will be lost here. You'll manage to keep your historical data and simply transfer it from your Z code to the new non-standard local Unidata code. So let's start with a demonstration of the first scenario. This being you have a new medical item that you want to purchase locally. You've never had this item in your database before. Before you would have created your own local medical code, but now you're going to request the code from the HQ pharmacy referent, and you've received validation that the code has been created and has synchronized down, and you need to simply activate it. So there's no history to merge, there's no previous existing code for this same item. So let's go to the first scenario. And we're going to use this code for venlafaxine. I think I pronounced that correctly. And we're going to show you how to activate this in Unifield. Okay, now I'm in the Unifield coordination instance, and that's important to note that both scenarios, whether it's merging a code or activating a new code, the encoding will happen in the coordination database, and then these changes will automatically sync to the project instances and update their databases so that everything remains aligned, so that everyone has the same information, the same codes in the same database. So I'm going to go to products, and then I'm going to search for the code. And it's important when you search So now I see that the code doesn't exist. And the reason is when it synchronizes from HQ, it's going to synchronize as inactive. So you're going to need to select the inactive filter, and now you'll see it. So in our scenario, you needed this item, you wanted to purchase it locally, you've requested the code to be created at HQ, it is synchronized down to your coordination instance, but it is in the status inactive. So let's open it and take a look. So you'll see that it has the description, the code, and a few things that are now different are the standardization level, which is here, says non-standard local, and the product creator is Unidata. And so that simply just tells you that this was a non-standard local code created at HQ in Unidata and synchronized to the mission level, and it's been subscribed by OCB. All of this means that you can activate it and it will work correctly in your database. So in this case, it's quite simple. All we have to do is click on the Reactivate Product button, and it'll give us this screen. And all this message is asking is telling you is to please be sure that this is a new code you're activating and not a code that already existed under a Z code and needs to be merged. So hopefully you've already done your investigation, you've checked the database, and you're aware that there are no other codes. You've confirmed that there are no other codes that would match this product and this description. It is indeed new, and if that's the case, you click OK. If you're not sure, click Cancel, do the investigation, and then when you are sure, you can repeat the process and click OK. So at this point, you'll see here that the code has now become active. And this is all you have to do for option 1, activating a new non-standard local code. And so if I wanted to, I could go back to my main screen, and I would see that when I look for this code, I click search, it is now it's already activated. It's in the active filter. If I look in the inactive filter, it's no longer there because it has moved from inactive to active. And at the next synchronization, this will update the project databases as well by activating this code, and then now you can use it for procurement, stock management activities in Unifield. So that is the first step. Of how you activate a new NSL code. So, what is option 2, scenario 2? So this scenario means that you already had a local Z medical code for the product in your database, and you will need to now merge it with the existing code in the database. And so this is going to happen a bit slower because HQ will be in contact with the different missions, and then they will start a process where we review the databases of your existing local medical codes, and once that is done, they'll identify which codes can be merged, etc. So, but once that happens, the part that needs to be encoded in Unifield is what we're going to demonstrate today, of how once you have validation and approval to go ahead and merge a code, how do you do that in Unifield? So for today's example, we're going to look at the mission has a local Z code with a DORA ZBD01 for clozapine, and we've been informed that the non-standard local Unidata code that has been created at HQ and synchronized to the mission is this DORA code here. So now let me go to Unifield and I'll show you the process there. So now I return to the coordination instance and I go to products again. And this time I'm going to start by looking up the local code that we're interested in replacing with the non-standard local code. So this is the ZBD code that's being used currently in the mission for the product clozapine 100 milligrams tablet. And if I open this code, I can see that it's local creator, it's non-standard. So it's a little different than the other code we looked at. which was created by Unidata and was a non-standard local code. So let's compare the two. So we looked up the ZBD code, we found it. Now we're going to look up and see if we can find the non-standard local code. So now I go back to the product's homepage and I type in the new non-standard local code that we are being asked to merge with the Z code, and I search for this code. And currently, the search result shows that this code does not exist in my database. But I know that because it's synchronized from HQ, I need to check in the inactive filter as well. So I reset my filters, and now I see the same item description, but with a non-standard Unidata local code. And so I can see that here, product creator Unidata, standardization level, non-standard local, OC subscribed. So the next step is to merge the codes. And there are a couple things that are important to point out here before we merge. Right now, we're looking at the code that is the Unidata non-standard local code. In the previous example, we reactivated it. In this example, it's important to remember that when you're going to merge a code, you do not activate it, reactivate it, because this can only happen once, and if you reactivate it, you no longer have the option to merge it in the future, and then you cannot combine the history of the original code onto the new code. So the proper procedure is to go to the Z code for the item, and to do that, I'll look it up again with the Z code for this item. Here it is, and this is the code that we want to encode the merge function on. So now you see you have a new button, merge product. And so this is the button we're going to click, and we get this pop-up window. Now it's really important that to merge a product, it has to have the same attributes. So it has to be a medical code. It has to have the same configuration, expiry date, and batch number date has to either be mandatory or not mandatory for both. So if you don't have if the two codes are not matching in their attributes and their configuration, then you'll get a warning that won't let you merge them. But in this case, both of our codes are configured similarly. So you need to come to this window here, and this is our, let me repeat, sorry. This is our old product code, and we want to merge it with which Unidata product code. So you need to encode here either the code, or you can use the looking glass to find the proper code. So I will copy paste the code that came from HQ, the new non-standard local code, and I will select it. And I can now see that this code was my original one, and then after I've completed this process, it's going to transfer all the history of this code onto this new code, and then it will automatically deactivate this code in the coordination and after synchronization in all the project instances in this mission. So I leave this empty. You do not need to tick this, and then I click merge product. And now the process is done. You can see that the new code, it keeps a history of the old codes, and right here is the old code that was your original Z code for this item is now in the history. It's now a Unidata code. It's a non-standard local code, and it is active. And so if I go back to my products database, and I search for that code, it is now active, and at the next synchronization it will become active in the projects, and it will deactivate the previously existing Z code for this same item. So remember, the scenario I just demonstrated is when the item already exist in your instance as a local Z medical code. That's when you need to use the merge function to combine the new code coming from HQ, from the Unidata database, and merge it with your existing Z code in the mission. Whereas in the first scenario, all you had to do was simply activate the code because you did not have a previously existing Z medical code. So those are the two options. You either activate or you merge depending on the context. I recommend that you review the written guidelines and the communication that came from HQ, and then you can review that along with this video. If you still have questions, please feel free to contact the Unifield Help Desk at the email listed here. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.